Would you be the jerk for specifically excluding your daughter from going on a trip of a lifetime? We'll get to that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for telling my wife it was a mistake to stay at a baby shower? So my wife, 26-year-old female, and I, 28-year-old male, have been married for a year and began trying to conceive in September. No luck so far, but the doctor did say at our first appointment that it typically takes close to a year for most couples to conceive. She's been telling people that she's infertile, which isn't true. Doctor said she isn't. My wife and I went to my work Christmas party in mid-December, where my wife met my coworker's wife, let's call her Mary, and they took a liking to each other. Mary was pregnant and invited my wife to her baby shower, which was yesterday, and my wife sounded excited to go. I asked her when we were alone if she thinks she'll be fine. I know my wife, and I know what typically bothers her. I knew she wouldn't bask in happiness over someone else's pregnancy, so I urged her to think it through. She said she's fine and she was excited, so she went. The baby shower was yesterday. About 40 minutes in, she calls me and asks me to come. I was at a cafe nearby because I knew she wouldn't stay long. I find her at the entrance of the house crying and a bunch of women consoling her. When she saw me, she came to me and pulled me to the garden to talk. She said she was dancing and looked at Mary's pregnant belly and couldn't take it anymore, started crying and ran out. All of Mary's friends followed her out to console her. I consoled her myself and said, "Okay, let's go, babe. Where do you want to go? We can go for a drive so you can feel better." She looked at me weird and asked me why she would leave. I asked why she would stay. She said she feels better now and can go have a good time. I sighed and said, "Babe, you know that's not going to happen, and I doubt the attention will be on Mary after this, and that's not great. It's her baby shower and she deserves to be celebrated. I can't see how people are going to shift their focus from consoling you to celebrating her if you're still there." She rolled her eyes at me and said she was going back in and that I could leave. 3 hours later, the party was nearing its end, so I go back to pick her up. My coworker and I stepped into the house, and lo and behold, everyone is sitting in a circle with my wife being the center of attention. Coworker looked for his wife, and she wasn't there at all. He called her and she said she had left ages ago. My wife and I entered the car, and I first asked her how she was feeling, and we spoke about it for a few minutes. I then asked her what happened and why Mary left. She said, "Oh crap, Mary, I forgot to say bye to her." I told her Mary left ages ago. I then said, "I know you're going through a hard time, but why on earth would you and her friends do this? If they consoled you for a few minutes, that's fine, but the entire party? We really should have left earlier." She looked at me so offended and said, "Are you Mary's husband or mine?" We stared at each other for a while and just drove home in silence. I told her I want to talk to her this morning to sort things out, but she ignored me and left the house. I think she's just not seeing reason here. I think OP's being more than fair and just straight up honest, and they don't want to see the truth. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, then why not hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my half-sisters they need to seek help and leave my mom alone? I'm 19-year-old male, and this is about my older half-sisters. My dad had them with a high school girlfriend but was never in their lives. He would sleep with her a few times and just never be involved with the girls. She was a train wreck, and he made a promise to her parents that he would take them if she got so bad they were suffering for it. But he never planned to keep the promise, and he never told anyone about them, never supported them or anything. So he married my mom, and she had no idea. Then when she was pregnant with me, the grandparents showed up and said the girls weren't being taken care of and he needed to step up and be their dad. My mom was home on her own and was in so much shock. The girls were 6 and 8 at the time and were 7 and 9 by the time I was born, I think. Dad got home after several hours, and once he realized my mom wasn't handling it like some saint, he was trying to talk her into them raising them together. She didn't want to stay with a liar or raise someone else's kids, so she left them and they divorced when I was 4 months old. Dear old dad didn't want them either and would allow them to fixate on my mom. He tried to pawn them off on her many times. He would ask in front of me for her to take them. He tried to get her to co-parent the 3 of us instead of just me. Mom always kept firm and tried to keep that stuff away from me, but dad never did. The girls spent years wanting mom to be their mom. They were in their teens and trying to use me to get mom to adopt them and stuff of that nature. It was sad. It was awkward as heck for me. The pressure was a lot. I hated Dad, and when I was 14, I stopped seeing him, and by extension, the girls who still lived with him. Then a couple of years ago, they made contact with me and tried to have a relationship again, but they were still so fixated on Mom, and it made me uncomfortable, so I always try to avoid heavy topics with them. A couple of weeks ago, while I was at Mom's, they showed up and started yelling at Mom and telling her that she was a piece of crap, and she became their mom the moment she married Dad and should have been there for them. They told her she owed them as much as she owed me, and how could she not love them? I stepped in and told them that they needed to leave and that Mom was not their mom and they needed to accept that. It took some time, but they left after I told them they needed to seek help over their fixation on Mom and learn to accept that she's not their mom. I told them they need to stay away from Mom, leave her alone, and work on themselves. They texted me after that I was a jerk just like her and they deserved so much better. Am I the jerk? I just feel bad for them in a way because I feel like they didn't have any real parents. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling people that my girlfriend shat herself during our son's birth? Last night there was a dinner party at my girlfriend's sister's, Lana's, house to celebrate the recent birth of their child with some of her family and friends. Afterwards, we were outside having some drinks and discussing the birth itself. Lana was talking about how embarrassed she was afterwards because she had soiled herself during and how she wanted to just bury her head in the sand. Only 3 women in the group have had kids: Lana, one of her friends, and my girlfriend. The rest hadn't and seemed quite shocked that Lana soiled herself, including my girlfriend. To be fair, they weren't laughing directly at her in an intentionally malicious way, but were still laughing in a "you really did that" type of way. My girlfriend chimed in saying that she would have been surprised if Lana wasn't embarrassed after pooping all over herself, and then started dramatizing the whole thing, jokingly as if it were a major deal. It was all banter, but to cover all corners, I added that it's actually common to do that while giving birth. With all the pushing and pressure being exerted on your stomach, it's frankly only natural and a very common occurrence, so she shouldn't be bothered. The friend who has a child agreed with me, but one cousin was like, "Yeah, right," and so I doubled down and used my girlfriend as an example. She also did that during birth. She seemingly didn't realize it, and we never spoke about it because it literally didn't matter to anyone. I didn't care. The nurses didn't care. The doctor absolutely didn't care. What matters is the baby came out, even if he came out with unexpected friends. My girlfriend argued with me for a bit, insisting that she didn't, but stopped when I told her she could ask her mother. She was also there. From then onwards, she completely ignored me. Every time I spoke to her, she would simply just stare at me and then continue talking to someone else. This made things a bit tense since everyone noticed, so I told her I'd wait in the car and excused myself. She followed about 30 minutes later, and as soon as we got home, she gave it to me. She thinks it was a jerk move blasting the fact that she had done that to everyone else like that, and that it was really embarrassing and unnecessary. No one even cared, and I could tell it made Lana feel calmer, but I just let her get it out and didn't say anything. Things are still quite cold, and I just keep replaying this in my head, wondering if I'm the jerk. Am I the jerk? Our next story is, am I the jerk going to my brother's bachelor's party despite wife's disapproval? My brother's bachelor party was 2 weeks ago. I was part of it, and my brother considered my presence a huge deal. However, my wife didn't want me nor approved of me going. That's because we have a newborn at home, and she didn't want me to travel towns away. I said it would be fine. I even invited Mom to help, but my wife refused. I invited her mom instead, and she was still mad. I got back and she refused to speak to me entirely. I already explained how important this was for my brother, but she said I prioritized him and his party over her and our son. She's still refusing to talk. Am I the jerk? I think there's a lot of variables here. I mean, how new is the newborn? How's your wife doing post-delivery? There's a lot of things that might make you easily the jerk. Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to tell my boyfriend whenever something has to be done in the house? I, female 24, have been living with my boyfriend, male 26, for 6 months. I work full-time, my boyfriend doesn't. The issue, since we've started living together, I've done 90% of the chores. I've complained to my boyfriend a few times, telling him I would really appreciate if he could help me and that I'd like to come back from work to a clean house. My boyfriend's always been willing to help. The issue is that he wants me to tell him whenever I want him to do something, aka he wants me to tell him when I want him to cook, clean, etc. A few weeks ago, I started cleaning our apartment on the weekend. I was pretty pissed as I had a very long and stressful week at work. During the week, a pile of dirty clothes had piled up and a bunch of dirty dishes was in the kitchen. I was pissed that my boyfriend stays at home all day and didn't clean either the dishes nor the dirty clothes. While I was cleaning, my boyfriend came to me and told me that he was angry that I didn't tell him I was cleaning. So, because I didn't tell him, he wasn't able to help me. I broke down and told him that I can't always tell him what to do, that I'm not his mother, and that he should be autonomous at his age. After all this, he called me a jerk and said I didn't know how to communicate. At the time of this incident, I was also pretty sick. We had nothing in the fridge. I didn't have time during the week to do grocery shopping, as I had been doing 9 to 7 all week at work. After our fight, I went to take a nap as I had a lot of fever. I woke up in the evening to my boyfriend being pissed because he was hungry and complaining that there was no food in the fridge. I asked him why he didn't go grocery shopping and cook something, and he said he hadn't thought of doing that, and I should have told him that I wanted him to go buy us food. I broke down again and another fight started. I told him that he couldn't blame me for being hungry when I'm already doing all the chores and feeling sick. Again, he called me a jerk. He said that he is 100% willing to help, but I need to tell him what to do. I don't agree with the fact that I should tell him whenever I want him to do something, and because of that, my boyfriend thinks I'm the jerk. So, dear Redditors, am I the jerk? This next story is, am I the jerk? I've talked to my wife's boss about her being overworked. Now my wife's yelling at me about never trusting me again. My wife's been putting in 10 to 14 hour days chained to her computer for the past 2 to 3 weeks, through weekends as well. To clarify, the last 2 to 3 weeks have been 100+ hour weeks. The whole year has been bad with lots of lost weekends and working over vacations. I wasn't able to take any days off for holidays either. She's been screaming obscenities about her job, how she wants to quit, how it's ridiculous she's working so hard without any break. There have been multiple tear-filled days. I've been walking on eggshells doing everything I can to help around the house and get her anything she wants. But I am on edge, constantly watching for an explosion. Today, working through the weekend again, she was screaming about other people she worked with screwing her up, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I texted her boss, edit, we work at the same company, and I'm semi-friendly with him already, and said 1, there are limits for human beings, 2, this kind of thing can't happen again next year. He agreed and said he'd try to help. Either way, he did a crap job of keeping me out of his conversation with her about limits today, so she found out I'd messaged him ASAP. Yep, that's me complaining about getting caught red-handed, I am the jerk. Now she's telling me that it was extremely misogynistic to message her boss to say she can't handle her job, which I didn't say, and that it's going to set her career back years. Says she can't ever trust me anymore to talk about work or how she's feeling. Generally threw me in the doghouse. Am I the jerk here? I honestly don't know. I can't stand to see her that strung out by work. But did I cross the line too far? I think the main thing that makes you the jerk here is doing things behind her back. I get wanting to help them out, but maybe talk to them first. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not wanting to do even split? We went out to dinner with a few other couples last night, including 2 new ones that are friends of our friends. My girlfriend and I don't really drink, and didn't last night. Editing this in so people see it. The restaurant has it in their menu that they don't do split checks for whatever reason. I've seen that at a few of the fancier places near us. When the check came, one of the new people took it, figured out the tip, and then said everyone owes X amount. Me and my girlfriend looked at each other and giggled, then she took the check and started rallying our total, which obviously was less than what the average was, since everyone else drank. Mostly everyone agreed it actually made sense, but one of the new couples was extremely offended and said something along the lines of, only children bother tallying totals instead of just splitting it evenly. I said, maybe we're children then, but I'm not paying for some rando's alcohol when I didn't even drink. My main friend messaged later saying the other couple never wants to hang out with us again, and even though he sees our point, maybe we should have just split it evenly. Are we jerks? I don't think so. Obviously, when you go out to dinner and your share is gonna be way less than everybody else's, you don't want to spend way more just because you happen to go out with them. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my mother her older children shouldn't be expected to raise her younger children when she dies? For context, I, female, late 20s, grew up in a very poor environment with a mother who couldn't take care of herself, let alone her large amount of children, which resulted in myself raising my siblings in their early life. We've never had the greatest relationship, as she's been known to steal from and abuse her children. I'll be trying to keep as much personal information as vague as possible. Over the last few years, my mother's been diagnosed with a large amount of health issues, and most recently has been told that there's a possibility it is terminal. With this information, I mentioned that my mother should start getting her affairs in order, as she has younger school-aged children that will need to be looked after. Myself and 4 of my other adult siblings are not in any position mentally or financially to 1. Cover the cost of her funeral, and 2. Raise her primary school-aged children when the inevitable happens. When I asked my mother what will be happening with my younger siblings, she said they'll come and live with myself and my other adult-aged siblings. This then led to an argument, as I stated that she should not be expecting her elder children to be taking care of her younger children, and that she wouldn't be in this position if she stopped having children when her elder children became adults. She had a large amount of children with different dads, and the eldest 3 were adults when the younger few were born. My mother's now proceeded to turn my extended family against me with her social media posts that are over-exaggerated regarding the situation. So, am I the jerk for telling my mother she shouldn't be expecting us to raise her kids? Unless it's the parents of those kids, nobody should be expecting anybody to just take care of kids. This next story is, am I the jerk for asking my husband to stop bringing up his brother during arguments? My husband and I keep getting into fights about my weight and sex. 2 weeks ago, I almost left him over these fights. He says cruel things, and if I don't just accept it, he doubles down. If I fight back, he brings up his deceased brother. Today we had one of these fights, and I asked him to stop using his brother in fights because the fights have nothing to do with him. He and I fought more over that. He got angrier and told me that I was a jerk for saying that. I told him I thought he was using his brother as an excuse to be mean to me. I've told him I've tiptoed around the subject for years because I know he's hurting, but I can't take it anymore. I know it's a sensitive subject for him, but berating me for my weight all the time is sensitive for me too, so I'm conflicted. Am I the jerk? This next story is, am I the jerk for high-fiving a stranger who humiliated my boyfriend? My boyfriend and I go to the climbing gym regularly. He's really into it, and I just started climbing a few times a week. He's stupidly competitive about it and quietly insults beginners who are not as good, which makes me feel self-conscious because I'm a beginner. Last night we were at the climbing gym again, and he was doing a V6. There were about 6 people taking turns on the problem, probably because it's a newly installed route, and they were all failing. Then a girl came and flashed it. She made it so easy, but at the end, she didn't hold the final hold for 5 seconds. And my boyfriend called her out after she was done. Holding the last hold for 5 seconds is supposed to be the right way of finishing a route, but she was doing it so easily she definitely could have. I think he was just being salty because she did it when he couldn't. She laughed and told him he didn't even start the problem correctly and walked off. I gave her a high five because she was walking towards me and did amazing at the problem and knocked my boyfriend off his high horse, and she was surprised but high-fived me. My boyfriend turned to me and gave me a what the freak look and wouldn't talk to me the rest of the night. When we were heading home, he ranted that I couldn't be trusted to watch his back if I chose to take a stranger's side over him. I was shocked that's what he took from the climb and told him he shouldn't have nitpicked her when she clearly climbed it correctly. And he got mad and argued I was supposed to take his side over people I don't even know. I respect the heck out of anybody that keeps people accountable when they're being total jerks. Therefore, OP is not one. Our next story is, am I the jerk for yelling to be let out of the car when my boyfriend's dad turned on the one feature I asked him not to? I spent last night with my boyfriend's family. We'd gone out to dinner and his dad was gonna drive. So my boyfriend, me, his parents, and his brother all squeezed into his dad's car and we went to the restaurant. I had a few drinks and his dad had 2 since he was gonna drive, but on the way back, his dad started asking me, "You work on self-driving cars, yeah?" I do, I'm a systems engineer and have job hopped between a handful of autonomy companies. He started asking me how I liked his Tesla, and I joked, "Just fine as long as you're the one driving it." And he asked me what I thought about full self-driving, which he had just bought. He asked if he should turn it on. I said, "Not with me in the car," and he then laughed and asked how I was still so scared when I work with this stuff every day. I was like, it's because but stopped when he pulled over and literally started turning it on. I was like, "I'm not kidding, let me out of the car if you're gonna do this." And my boyfriend's dad and brother started laughing at me, and my boyfriend still wasn't saying anything. His dad was like, "It'll be fine." And I reached over my boyfriend's little brother and tried the door handle, which was locked. I was getting mad, and probably more so because I was tipsy, and I yelled at him, "Let me the freak out." My boyfriend started trying to tell me to calm down because I was drunk, and I told him that it didn't freaking matter. I'd be out of here sober or drunk. He told me to stop cussing in front of his little brother, and I told him to tell his dad to cut his crap out, and I wouldn't have anything to cuss over. His dad was like, "Fine, I didn't realize it would be such a big deal," and drove home normally, but things have been tense as heck. We got back to his house, and he was mad at me for overreacting the first time I met his family all together. I got angry and was like, "I'm not the one who decided to do the one thing that I said I'm not comfortable with in the car," just after I'd asked him not to laugh at me. He said that his dad used the car a lot, and it was fine, and I asked him, since we're both rock climbers, would he ever get on a route with his carabiner that doesn't lock? What if someone says they do it all the time, and it's fine? He was like, "Absolutely not, but that's different." And I was like, "It's literally not. Just like we don't know any climbers who would do that crap. Nobody in my field that I know would stay in that car." He got mad and told me to go to sleep. I was drunk. But honestly, today, I woke up sober and I stand by what I did. Like, I wasn't comfortable with what was happening, and my boyfriend's family all laughed and started trying to do the one freaking thing I said not to. Like, whatever that thing is, it's messed up. Am I the jerk for yelling at my boyfriend's dad to let me out of the car? This just especially seems telling to me about how safe the self-driving feature is. But yeah, no, if you're uncomfortable with that, in no way should you be forced to sit there and accept that. And you shouldn't be ridiculed because you don't want to trust software to drive you. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my daughter-in-law about my son's past? I, 49-year-old female, have a 27-year-old son, Jason. Jason is married to his wife, Amelia, 26. They've been married for about 7 months, together for 2 years. Amelia is pregnant, and we were just talking about the baby, and I said this is technically Jason's second child. She was very confused and asked me what I meant. When my Jason was 18, he had a girlfriend, Jenna, he was with for about a year, who got pregnant. I love my son, but he wasn't much of a father. I saw my grandson more than Jason did, and broke up with the girl shortly after the baby was born. When his son was 2, a drunk driver hit Jenna and my grandson. Jenna is handicapped and is being taken care of in a home, but my grandson didn't make it. Amelia was shocked when she heard this, and I showed her the plants I planted for him in my garden. I thought Jason would have told her. I was shocked he didn't. Amelia wanted to visit Jenna in the home and his son's grave. Jason called me later that night fuming and cursing, saying I had no right to tell her about any of that, and was angry that she wanted to go meet Jenna and see his son's grave. I told him it was his wife, and she deserves to know. He called me a jerk and said that it was almost 9 years ago and didn't need to be brought up. This broke my heart. I don't think I'm the jerk. I assumed she already knew and she deserves to know. In no way can OP be the jerk here. You would never assume that they didn't know. You would never assume that somebody would want to hide that stuff. Our next story is, am I the jerk for excluding my daughter from a trip of a lifetime? To celebrate our 30th anniversary, me, 60-year-old male, and my wife, 59-year-old female, decided to invite our 4 kids, their partners, and our 4 grandkids to a vacation in the Caribbean for a week. We volunteered to pay for all lodging for everyone if they could pay for transportation and incidentals. We invited everyone last July for an April vacation, We wanted this to be a chance for our immediate family to be together and enjoy the experience and each other. We didn't invite any friends or other relatives, including my oldest daughter's 43-year-old female, stepson, 20-year-old male. This was a hard choice, but we knew we had to make some determination. Otherwise, we would be trying to find a place for my in-laws and some of our friends and a lot of other people we love. Last week, my youngest daughter M, 35-year-old female, and her wife, 35-year-old female, told me that they'd promised their nephew L, 10-year-old male, a tropical vacation, but that was canceled due to COVID. L is a nephew on my daughter-in-law's side, and we've met him a few times, but he's not our relative, and not someone any of the other kids or grandkids have a relationship with. After my wife and I talked, we told M that we really want them there, but we want this to be our family, and that we wouldn't feel right about adding L. L would have slept in the room with M's kids, so there would have been no expense, just a child guest that nobody knows outside of M's family. When we told M that, M told us that she can't see taking this vacation without L, and that if we can't change our minds, then they won't be joining us. 2 of our kids are saying we did the right thing. Otherwise, we open the trip up to whoever decides to join. One of our kids is saying that we're the jerk because L would have been fun with his cousins and wouldn't have been a financial burden or a time burden on us. My wife and I are struggling. We've already excluded people we're close to when we sent the original invitation, and they had 7 months to bring up L and just told us this week. To complicate things, Em and her wife have been semi-estranged from us, off and on. They tend to drift out of our lives for months at a time until they need something. Then they stick around for a little bit before drifting off again. So I really wanted this to be an experience that all of our kids and grandkids could share. Now my daughter, her wife, and their 2 sons, who we are least close to, will miss out. So, should we stick to our guns, or are we the jerks and need to let them bring L? I think this is one exception you really could make. There's no burden for you financially, there's no burden for you to have to watch after them. Everybody else that is going seems to express some kind of either desire to have them there, or no complaint. To me, at the end of the day, it seems like they're just trying to be technical about it. Being like, well, we can't bring along all the other people we want to bring along, so you can't bring your 10-year-old nephew, even though it fits into the plans. But at the same time, this is your vacation. It's not somebody you're directly related to. I do think you have every right to say no, even if that does upset some people. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.